In the heart of South Carolina's correctional system lies a festering wound of injustice and inhumanity that has utterly failed inmates, their families, and the very essence of society's moral fabric. The recent string of tragic inmate deaths within the South Carolina Department of Corrections, SCDOC, has ripped open the curtain of corruption and callousness, exposing a nightmarish reality. It is an outrage of epic proportions, an abomination that sears the conscience, and demands immediate, unyielding action to dismantle this monstrous machine. Rehabilitation is the bedrock of any respectable correctional system, but the SCDOC has twisted this noble goal into a cynical betrayal. Instead of offering inmates a chance at redemption, the system prioritizes lining the pockets of those who view human lives as mere commodities. Rehabilitation programs languish in obscurity, suffocated by a lack of funding and attention, without access to education, vocational training, and mental health support. The hope for inmates to rebuild their lives dwindles to a flicker amidst a sea of despair. Profit-driven interests have ensnared the SCDOC like a deadly virus, suffocating the life out of any semblance of humanity within its walls. Private corporations, driven solely by greed, manage correctional facilities with a ruthlessness that rivals the cruelest of despots. Inmates are reduced to mere numbers on a balance sheet, mere pawns in a sickening game of profit maximization. The rot of corruption permeates the corridors, leaving behind a stench that lingers, a reminder of society's moral bankruptcy. Within the confines of the SCDOC's hellish facilities, human dignity is shattered, and basic rights are not but a distant memory. The grotesque sight of overcrowded cells, rife with disease and despair, mocks the very notion of civilization. The lack of adequate medical care, coupled with subhuman living conditions, lays bare the system's utter disregard for the lives it holds captive. It is a travesty beyond words, a blight on the conscience of the state, and a grotesque violation of the sanctity of life. The ripple effects of the SCDOC's callousness extend far beyond prison walls, inflicting indescribable pain upon families torn apart by injustice. Loved ones helplessly witness their incarcerated family members waste away in a Kafkaesque nightmare of torment. Society, in turn, bears the heavy burden of a broken system that only perpetuates crime and fuels the very cycle it was meant to break. The taxpayers' dime funds a bottomless pit of suffering and recidivism, a damning indictment of a system gone astray.
A call for urgent reform. Unite against inhumanity. The time for half-hearted measures and empty promises is over. The crisis within the SCDOC demands collective outrage and relentless advocacy for change. We must rally together, raise our voices, and demand an end to the profit-driven nightmare that consumes human lives. Prioritize rehabilitation, allocate resources, and treat inmates with the compassion and respect that befits their inherent worth. Holding those responsible accountable is but the first step. A complete overhaul of the system is the only path to redemption. Collaborative efforts for change. Humanity in action. Real change requires more than impassioned outrage. It requires a united front against the darkness that has engulfed the SCDOC. Policymakers, civil rights advocates, and community organizations must form an unbreakable alliance to reshape the landscape of South Carolina's correctional system. Transparency, accountability, and empathy must reign supreme, chiseling away at the rotten foundations that have allowed this tragedy to fester. Conclusion: reclaiming the soul of justice. The crisis within the South Carolina Department of Corrections is not a stain that can be wiped away with empty words and hollow promises. It is a festering wound that requires the most potent antidote. Justice served with a side of compassion. Together, we must stare into the abyss of inhumanity and choose to stand as a beacon of hope, fighting to reclaim the soul of justice from the clutches of greed and indifference. Only then can we build a correctional system that values the sanctity of life, restores human dignity, and rekindles the embers of hope for a brighter, more humane future. The alarming reality of the South Carolina Department of Corrections (SCDOC) reaches an appalling tipping point, where the loss of inmate lives should serve as a deafening wake-up call. How many more lives must be sacrificed before much-needed reform finally takes place? The Governor of South Carolina and the Director of SCDOC must be held accountable for their misinformation and decisions, as their authority carries a heavy responsibility for the dire state of the system. The shortage of staff is not just an administrative issue. It translates to a woeful lack of care and concern for the well-being of inmates. Instead of providing rehabilitation opportunities, the SCDOC perpetuates oppressive and degrading practices, leaving families torn apart and discriminated against. Even those who may have committed non-violent offenses deserve a second chance at rehabilitation and reintegration into society. Thank you for bringing this critical issue to our attention. The situation described is indeed concerning, and we must work towards finding a solution. As you mentioned, the SCDOC has a significant responsibility in ensuring the well-being of its inmates, while also protecting the rights and dignity of the affected families. I believe that a thorough investigation into the reported issues is essential in order to hold the responsible parties accountable. Moreover, a holistic approach must be taken to rehabilitation and reintegration of inmates, which includes providing appropriate education, mental health support, and vocational training. Ensuring that inmates are treated with respect and dignity is not only beneficial for their personal growth, but also helps to foster a better environment within the correctional system. In this context, I would like to point out that many states in America prioritize faith and proper care for inmates, and it would be interesting to see if any of them have adopted similar measures to improve the conditions within the SCDOC. Additionally, I believe that collaboration between government agencies, non-profit organizations, and community members can contribute to creating a more effective and inclusive rehabilitation strategy. In conclusion, it is crucial to address the current situation in the SCDOC by implementing strict measures against inhumane treatment, conducting a thorough investigation, and focusing on rehabilitation and reintegration. By working together, we can bring about positive change and ensure that the rights and dignity of both inmates and their families are protected.